everybody. My name's Gordon Stott. I'm an architect and co-founder of Connect Homes. I'm out here at our factory in San Bernardino. We have about, I think, 100,000 square feet of space out here. We're running an assembly line. We're really excited about this new shelter project that we've initiated. I'm standing in front of a Shelter 3 prototype. This we built kind of halfway through the summer. We didn't build it on the assembly line. We just sort of built it statically in place. But I think our idea, and I think a lot of people sort of share this idea, is that maybe there's kind of a missing middle out there for, finding emergency housing that can be deployed either temporarily or permanently, that's affordable, that offers sort of a full suite of services to various different communities. And so this prototype structure is the first one that we kind of built for ourselves in order to sort of figure out how to do an off-grid shelter unit. We got it state approved. We then went on to sell 5 of them to a boarding school in Ojai. We just delivered 5 of those units a couple weeks ago. We think we've taken our first kind of sizable order for the shelter units to serve the homelessness space. That's really kind of why we built these in the first place. We really designed and purpose built this in order to address housing needs of the least fortunate among us. But it's exciting for us that, kind of our first clients have been high-end boarding school, where they're looking to be able to stick students who test positive and can't go back into double or triple or communal sort of housing situations. So what's been really interesting for us is just seeing how obviously basic everybody's shelter needs are, and that, if you create a great space, it's something that hopefully can appeal to a lot of different markets. And so for us as a company that really focuses on trying to, with Connect Homes, do modern green, high spec homes, selling to, places like urban California. Typically our clientele, they're definitely of means, and it's just been tremendously rewarding to be able to kind of take everything that we've learned from building that product and kind of pivot to make this product, and really exciting about getting in the fight and being able to build this on our assembly line, which will ultimately lead to where we're building, close to 4 of these a day.
Just to kind of give a little more background, Connect Home. So it's based in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so Connect Homes is based in Los Angeles. We have design offices there. And then the factory is out here in San Bernardino in the Inland Empire. I think I have about probably close to 100 people working for the company. Connect Homes is a little bit different in our space in that we install all of the houses that we build. So a lot of people in the prefab space, they sort of do a certain scope of work in the factory, and then they kind of dish it off to someone else to complete the house on site. We feel that you really end up kind of learning the most and designing the smartest prefab system if you're able to take all of that feedback as one company and learn from what you've done in the field installing to sort of inform what you're doing on the production line. And so here with this Connect Shelter, we're especially excited because we're developing a line of single module units. And when these units are single module, what that ends up meaning is that we can essentially finish the entire house or shelter in the factory. We can put bedding in it. We can put towels and soap in the bathroom. We can fully finish it and then drop it on site. And so what's kind of unique about our shelter project is that we have the capacity for going off grid with all of our utilities. Oh, wow. So typically, incredibly high sort of like site development costs are involved with bringing utilities to whatever sort of housing unit you're doing. And so in this situation, we've actually onboarded, you can see a little bit here in the mechanical room, but we've onboarded condenser fan coil units, which are obviously inside, water tanks, potentially gray and black water. It doesn't need to necessarily be temporary, but having that, having those features enable it so in a situation like this, it can be a fully working unit that's actually, just sitting on hard tarmac. And so we feel that really, the ability to kind of like easily deploy, fully finish in a factory, and then easily relocate, and then also be anywhere along that spectrum of being temporary to permanent, really sort of offers a lot of flexibility for a lot of different situations in this space.
Got it. Just tell me a little bit about like when the company was founded and by who,
Yeah.
the previous work and projects that you've worked on.
Connect Homes kind of launched to the public right around 2013. Myself and co-founder Jared Levy both worked together at another prefab company called Marmol Redzine, or Prefab. He helped kind of like launch and run that program, and I was working as a project manager there. We loved the houses that we were doing at this very, very high-end prefab firm, and really got to cut our teeth not only on learning to build on an assembly line, but also learning how to create a product that was widely appealing, but factory built, and kind of targeting the higher end of the market. Ultimately, the homes that we were building there weren't capable of shipping long distances without incurring insanely high shipping costs. And so we kind of built our entire system around a patented modular housing technology that allows us essentially to build modular frames that behave like shipping containers. They're not actually shipping containers. They're purpose-built steel frame modules. They're moment frame modules. Ultimately, a structure like this, which is the basis for one of our either interior prefab modules or one of our exterior deck modules, the structure allows us essentially to put glass wherever we want to in the house without having to re-engineer anything, because ultimately the exterior walls aren't load-bearing. All the steel frame is, a moment frame that essentially has all of its shear resistance just in the way in which the columns and beams are welded together. Then these can be actually clad and protected and shipped on the intermodal shipping container network. That's kind of like the design that we've got kind of baked into this whole system. And then in order to do that, we've kind of like taken everything that we've learned from that, the good and the bad. Ultimately, when a house comes off our assembly line here, it's probably about 85 or 90% done. But there's still that seam between the modules that has to be finished on site. Mm-hmm. And just doing that little bit of work, even sending our own crews to do it, becomes just very, very time consuming. And so when designing the Connect shelters, what we're so excited about is that, there are no mod-to-mod connections, and these units can essentially behave completely autonomously and discreetly. And not only that, they don't even need to go into the ground, which is ultimately probably the most exciting thing about this, is that it can provide temporary housing needs, servicing those needs without, doing $3 million worth of site work and other things like that when they have to be served with permanent utilities. That said, we love the service gray and black water tanks, or supply fresh water, or hook up to temp power, or service with propane trucks. It's just kind of like enabling them with this kind of like either or capability. We've delivered modules as far away as Connecticut using our system. Again, when we were working at our previous company, we'd get orders for projects in the Hamptons that would potentially be built in a factory in downtown Los Angeles, and it would turn out it would cost $450,000 to ship one of those houses cross country, when the house maybe only cost $900,000 to build, let's say. And so, understanding that like the entire prefab industry is sort of set up around non-optimized logistics. We created this Connect Home system. Most of our clients are in California. We had a particularly good week last week, and we sold I think it's 8 homes to 7 different clients. All of those are in California. a lot of the housing issues, both at the high end and at the low end, are simultaneously taking place in California. So this seems to be a relatively good place for us to be headquartered. And again, sort of the idea behind the factory is that we've streamlined logistics in such a way that a single factory can service not just California, but national markets. For us, it's just a question of when we scale up to get there, we really want to perfect the entire end-to-end process. So being able to kind of like own the installation from start to finish, being able to own the design from start to finish, and obviously the creation of the product in the factory from start to finish. And so that really requires kind of perfecting the system, which is what we're currently doing here in California.
And so the product lineup has been it ranges from single family homes to backyard homes, and now the Connect shelter is sort of that third line of business.
That's right. That's right. So Connect Homes, if you go on our website, I think we have like 14 different models that we offer, anything from a 460 square foot Connect One. We name our models according to how many modules they have, but the Connect One's 460 square foot. The Connect 10 is 10 modules and it's 3,200 square feet. So yeah, that's kind of the range that we go to. One of the main takeaways that we've had is there's a certain scale beyond which it makes sense to site build. And like for us, we end up thinking that scale is kind of anything larger than a single family home. I think that there will be situations in which like prefab duplexes or quadplexes that are designed to fit perfectly on a standard 50 by 100, city lot might make a lot of sense as well as a prefab product. But really, I think what we've learned is that in order to have an assembly line, so it goes like this. Anything that isn't built on an assembly line isn't available to the middle class, more or less. Bespoke processes are incredibly labor intensive and incredibly expensive. Anything that gets built on an assembly line magically becomes somewhat available to, more widely available. And so in order to have an assembly line building houses, we need to be driving sales that can justify running an assembly line. And in order to do that, we really need to sort of standardize as much as possible so that we're not kind of reinventing the wheel in the way in which site construction does when you move from project to project. And so in this situation, 14 standard homes, you really kind of can change any of your interior and exterior finishes as long as you play within our selection set. And then given the steel frame moment module, you can actually put glass wherever you want to in the house, which means you can take a standard plan and adapt it to whatever your specific site conditions are.
Yep.
And that really for us has been kind of the missing link of like why people won't buy the same house again and again. Again, previously when we were at our previous firm, nobody ever bought the same house again and again. We were just serially doing custom prefab. And so we love the homes that we made there. I think we had made the cover of Dwell magazine like 5 times, had the first prefab house in Architectural Digest. It just wasn't any cheaper than site built construction. And so all of this and kind of the shelter project specifically is a culmination of like everything that we've learned about sort of the logistics and scaling and kind of, implementation of what's maybe could be possible with a prefab system.
All boils down to the Connect Shelter 3.
So yeah, Shelter 3, Shelter 4, Shelter 2, yeah, all of these, but these shelter projects, yeah, that kind of can be built entirely, in the factory, delivered complete, dropped, and not even hooked up to site utilities. Again, like I'm only laughing just because we all know, I'm sure a lot of us out there listening to this are architects, we all just know sort of like how difficult, every project is. And so, yeah, this is kind of represents for us a fantasy in which we're getting to use some of our modern design chops. We're getting to use everything that we've learned about like prefab. And then we're also addressing like a market that has even greater needs than modern house market, which again, we love addressing. We love building those houses. Those are the houses that we love to be in. But these shelters, it's just been really amazing to see. I mean, this 70 square foot room or whatever, but with floor to ceiling glass on either side, you know, with its own bathroom, highly insulated, et cetera, et cetera. Like this also is strangely enough a space that I want to be in. And like, yeah, so it's like, it's just fun how it does seem like a lot of different things kind of converging on all of this.
Well, it's sort of the Tesla business model, right? Of you starting out with some very high end $10 million homes and then sort of moving further down through the middle class. And now we're sort of housing everyone from students to people experiencing homelessness. So I love the top-down approach to democratizing high-end design.
No, well, we appreciate that. Yeah, it is, you know, again, it's just really inspirational to see what everybody's doing at a time like this, especially people, I think, in our field.
So maybe we can walk into a unit just starting from the outside.
Of course,
this is on
So,
a standard-sized trailer bed, like an 8.5 wide bed made for shipping by rail.
Yeah, so it's an 8x40 footprint. We have kind of two different module heights that we deal with. I think that one of our ceiling heights is closer to like 8.5, and then, you know, 8.10 or something like that. So I think for the shelter project, I think we're kind of typically sticking to the lower unit height. And so it's not on, right now it's just sitting on blocks. In our subsequent models that we've built, we've actually reincorporated the corner fittings from the shipping container world just at the bottom here. Again, we're not dealing with recycled shipping containers. We don't build with containers. We actually kind of, the strange punchline about containers is that they're super hard to build with and they end up being kind of very expensive. And so instead of fetishizing kind of the shipping container, kind of our businesses, both Connect Shelters and Connect Homes, have been about more fetishizing the shipping container network, which is just sort of like the dimensional sort of attributes that allow these things to ship, you know, to Texas for, you know, $4,500 or whatever it is, which makes this a viable housing solution out there. So yeah, the Shelter 3, again, we name our shelters according to how many people they sleep, but the Shelter 3 has 3 separate different units. Again, we offer also a Shelter 4 that gets a 4th unit in here and then takes out all of the bathrooms as well. You know, we also offer a Shelter 2, which has only 2 units and they're larger and have kitchenettes and are sort of more appropriate for kind of like families or couples. But yeah, right now installed in the units, we've got like an optional furniture upgrade that we do. You can also put in like a Murphy bed or Murphy bed desk kind of combo, or you can kind of outfit this however you want to. It could be, in essence, obviously office space. It could be sleeping space. You know, we really take the kind of isolation concepts pretty seriously in that, you know, all of these have separate mechanical systems, separate plumbing systems, separate venting. So there are no kind of like crossovers between units. But yeah, so it's sitting, it's on a steel frame, and it is built just like our homes actually are in this situation. So they're incredibly well engineered, and there could be glass all around this thing, or glass could be kind of wherever you want it to be in it, and we can definitely move glass around for clients. But ultimately for shelters, we think you know, the key things, attributes are having privacy, but also allowing in as much light as possible, and having the floor to ceiling glass create the sort of illusion of being connected to larger spaces, or the reality of being connected to larger spaces, but then giving the body sort of the sensation that one's in a larger space than one actually is. And so on each unit, we have, you know, things like the centralized locking systems. These doors, you know, might not be right for all industries, but certainly for things like dorm rooms, they have a nice like integrated, you know, shade, which can privacy. You know, we're using door and window package that we offer in, you know, our homes. These windows are totally trick. There's no kind of like plastic on them anywhere. They're, dual pane, low E, thermally broken, but really, really sort of true commercial system and really, really well built, which super excited about. Durability becomes kind of like almost the most important thing. Door stops kind of just add kind of, and then kind of like going into a bathroom. We've got sort of, it's small, but it's a really nice kind of, you don't need bathrooms to be all that large. And again, so this is one of the things that we've really sort of seen is how much the homelessness markets and also the educational markets, just how much there is overlap in kind of like everyone's need for sheltering. Essentially like a 70 square foot room, and then there's bathroom. And so we have kind of 3 of those. But yeah, and then we also have the mechanical area, which ends up being kind of almost the most important component of all of this. This is just sort of like, how do you onboard everything so that you essentially, are able to sort of drop and go. It's been really exciting to see, in our factory a couple of weeks ago, right before we were shipping those modules to the boarding school, it was 108 degrees in the factory, and a room got down to temperature using these heat pumps, got down to 73 degrees in like 4 minutes, and then the system kind of went into kind of like sustain mode or whatever it is. And so it's just really fun, and all of that was like the house or the unit was kind of carrying all of that on itself. Like when you have to sort of like set a pad and then run bundled line and then charge everything, and then you're even talking about kind of days in the field when in reality sort of you need to be able to deploy these as quickly as possible.
Well, tell me a little more about the materials that you're using.
So we're using cement board, fiber cement board panel for the exterior. This ends up being really sort of fire resistive. It's there are 2 different versions. One can use a modified rain screed assembly. The other just sort of like fastens directly into the to the sort of like waterproofed sheathing product that makes the sort of sheathing board that these go on top of. So again, steel frame unit. We've got linoleum floors. We've got FRP boards in the walls, so it's not like a drywall product, but they're kind of like easily wipeable.
Is there much sound barrier?
Yeah, there is a sort of similar to our standard kind of interior walls. I think there's R13 between the rooms, and then yeah. I mean, they are really kind of quiet, very quiet units. And then so all the sort of standard kind of plugs and fixtures that we'd find in one of our kind of typical homes. Recessed cans, that's a fire suppression system. Again, all of these are built to sort of state codes, modular codes that are approved by HCD in the case of California and other agencies in different places. But so, these have to pass kind of like all of the kind of, energy code requirements and different things like this. So I think it's probably like R36 in the roof, something like that, R30 in the floors, probably close to like R16 in the exterior walls. I believe that's true. R18 between the partitions. And then, I mean, standard building assemblies, like we use wood framing for all of our exterior and interior walls. Again, the wood framing ends up being non-load bearing. Ultimately, it's like the steel frame that ends up bearing the load. We might be slightly modifying that system to sort of like be more suited to doing shelters moving forward. But so we've had a lot of people from the sort of homelessness industry come out and kind of like, kick the tires, as it were, And yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty clear that when you're serving the homelessness market, you know, you have a different brief, you know, just in terms of kind of like fixture specs and things like that. You know, I think that it's, you know, likely that, you know, in this first big order that we're doing for the homelessness community, it's quite likely that we end up having a drain in the floor, you know, in order to sort of like be more easily washed down, almost, you know, guaranteed you're clean between uses. Yeah, exactly. So this is FRP board. You can definitely kind of like screw into it. I think you probably but it would make a permanent hole. So yeah, I think it would be better to kind of like go for your adhesive kind of like you know, things that you didn't want permanently marking the walls.
So
that makes sense.
those are all hung up on adhesives, like the shelving and everything is also...
I think these are actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
not sure. Those might be screwed in. Yeah, those are obviously anchored.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a, you know, it's similar to what's used in kind of commercial hospitals and stuff like that. It's like a very, very hard wearing surface. It's less about kind of, you know, hanging up pictures of yourself and stuff like that.
Is that surface, is that something you can spray down and hose, or...
Oh yeah, yeah, you know, FRP is definitely like that.
Oh, so you can basically take the mattress out of there and wash the whole thing by spraying it down.
Yeah. Again, that's where I was saying that the
Interesting.
floor drain kind of like offering kind of like true washability, and then you need to change the baseboard and things like that. But yeah, to make it waterproof, it's currently wood. But yeah, the idea being that you that these are as hard wearing as possible.
Is the as far as like customization is concerned, so
yeah, I mean, you know, kind of high level, we're, in terms of flexibility, we're capable of, again, like the goal is to kind of like keep to standard as much as possible. But certainly we understand that in specific shelter scenarios, oftentimes there are, you know, needs in which these modules need to go back to back, for instance. And so maybe like that window needs to be, this window needs to be relocated kind of over here, you know, and then maybe that kind of ends up affecting the space in one way or another. Like, so there are definitely customizations that we offer, and are pretty flexible on that, as long as people stick to the kind of 8x40 scenario that we have set up. We do as well larger modules, closer to like 12x40, for things like conference room areas and stuff like that. We're not crazy about doing the bigger ones. We prefer doing the smaller ones, but we definitely prefer doing the bigger modules to doing two smaller modules that are stuck together. So again, the goal being to basically fully finish the modules in the factory. And so we can definitely offer a larger unit if the need is there as well.
And as far as the exterior siding or the design and the color paint scheme, is that all customizable based on the site?
Yeah. Those boarding school modules that we did a couple of weeks ago, they had like a really big orange Pegasus. That's the school mascot.
Oh, very cool.
But a big Pegasus on the side. And definitely this material is really great for you know, painting in any way that people want to do. I think there's also obviously a lot of options kind of graphically. You know, that said, if there was a situation where this needed to go to wood or some other material or metal, we would probably consider that as well, if that was part of the need or the brief. We just really like the kind of look and flexibility of this cement panel. Yeah, there are a lot of green features. Very similar spec to what we're doing in our house. In our house system as well is an ERV system, which at times like this, when there's a lot of particulate in the air and stuff like that, can end up helping you filter you know, any outdoor air that comes to the inside of the unit. We don't offer one of those here. I mean, I think it's everything from, you know, being you know, highly insulated envelope, you know, LED fixture, you know, requirements. Everything is as low flow as is humanly possible. And that's for a lot of different reasons. One of them being that we're trying to go off grid, or trying to enable people to go off grid with these.
Yep.
So, you know, the toilet, you know, the toilets have very, very small flushing capacities. The shower heads are running on very, very restrictive sort of, you know, water flows. But yeah, it's kind of a, you know, everything from the cool roof system on top. It's a PVC membrane roof to yeah, the dual pane low E glass as well. I mean, the neat thing is that, you know, any house built in California these days has to be really relatively filled with green features. And so that kind of has informed just sort of in general how we build this. Of course, you know, if I was to get into it, like, you know, the real efficiency that we offer with our homes, much like with these shelters, is the fact that they're being built on an assembly line. And so, you know, the goal is to be building 4 of these a day. Right now we have a 2,000 square foot house coming off our assembly line every 6 working days. And just sort of the kind of like amount of resource savings that's done in a factory assembly line scenario vis-a-vis even like, again, most prefab factories out there, what we find is that they're building statically in place. So they're not getting any of the benefits of the assembly line. And so for us, we've measured our waste, and it truly is 60% less than kind of standard residential home construction in terms of like number of you know, bins used. And so it's just tremendously rewarding to see kind of like, you know, wood that gets initially used maybe in the floor or the walls, then getting further cut down, you know, and those offcuts being used in the roof framing system. There's sort of this real kind of you know, repurpose and reuse kind of aspect that goes on during the whole process, which I think really, really, you know, points to building not in a bespoke manner like most site built, like all site built construction is, but instead a factory built manner.
Can you put multiple stories?
Yeah, we're not crazy about the stacking, and again, it's kind of for that same reason of like, we're not crazy about even like placing these things side by side and connecting them.
Yeah.
It's just when you are stacking, you end up with that storyline connection. And especially if you've got like a lot of plumbing in the upper module, then like you're kind of like, you know, connecting all the plumbing, which means you have to leave off materials on the inside or the outside, means like kind of like all of that additional complexity. And again, like, it's just when we lay out a you know, a homelessness sort of like a service facility, we're trying, you know, we'll get designs and people will be kind of like trying to group modules together and have these like large double wide spaces and stuff like that. We really, really try to steer people towards using a suite of these kind of isolated, you know, different models that can serve different purposes, whether it was, as I was saying, like a slightly larger conference room or something like that, or, you know, repurposing these as offices or whatever it is. But the sort of general idea being like, just no kind of like mod to mod connections. And it sounds a little bit weird, like a modular housing company being like, you know, so against connecting modules together, because that's kind of the basis.
Connect homes of all names too.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the basis of what we do. But like, it's just, I mean, it's so thrilling. You know, our smallest standard house product is the Connect One. It's one module. It's slightly wider than all of our other modules. And so it's really big enough to be a 1-bedroom house, wide enough to be a 1-bedroom house. And it's just so thrilling to be kind of like shipping those as single units. And obviously, look, it's not like we're, you know, we haven't come across some great invention here, like single wide and double wide kind of mobile homes and manufactured homes have been doing this for years. It's just that in this scenario, product that's, one, not a trailer, two, can be permanent structure, three is really sort of like very, very well built, all of that stuff. So we're not doing anything necessarily very new here. It's just trying to understand how we could create a system that really can fulfill all sorts of needs.
Awesome. Well, let's maybe take a look at the utility and how they hook up.
This is the condenser. It's on board, serves the 3 fan coil units that are in each room and are independently zoned, obviously, and sucking only from their own room. So that's all charged and ready to go. There's the propane instant tankless water heater. There's the fresh water tank here, which supplies for the showers and the bath, the toilets and the sinks. There's the electrical panel. There's the fire sprinkler manifold that connects up with the fire sprinkler system that's inside. There's sort of like the tanking controls. You can kind of read in there. Those are for the gray water and the black water tanks that are down here along the side of the unit, kind of like independently controlled between the gray water and the black water. This prototype just had sort of like the separate gray water and black water needs to be served there. But then again, so with 3 bathrooms, each unit has its own, and those would need to be serviced where they're sized. Again, if you're large scale infrastructure and many of these units, you'd want to have probably a different solution. But if you only have like a few of these, the tanks would probably work very, very well. If you had more of these units, you'd probably want to consolidate the gray water and black water into larger tanks that wouldn't necessarily be onboarded. With the corner fitting units, they end up kind of sitting beneath the steel frame, and they lift this thing about 5.5 or 6 inches off the ground, which gives it kind of a nice, like, sort of like kind of prospect, but also like, allows for things like forklift forks to go underneath the house or underneath the shelter very easily, things like that. More permanently affix it to a foundation, it would be more a system of doing some type of, small minimal pier system that then kind of probably, welds the steel frame down to sort of metal that's embedded in the pier. That would be if you were doing something that was sort of more permanent. You'd also probably want to create a crawl space underneath so you could access everything.
Got it. Well, should we go take a look in the factory,
Sure.
just seeing a couple of stages?
So here, the floor framing and the ceiling framing from station 1 has been done. The wall framing from station 2 has been done, and then this scaffolding is to install the roof. And then we can walking through our assembly line. Station 4 is rough MEP, and then we kind of circle around to sort of where interior and exterior finishes are going on the units. So there's kind of tile in the bathroom kind of here, and then all of that's what is that? I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's an ERV system. I'm not sure. But then this is kind of stationed right before the modules are ready to get like zipped up and shipped. Finished flooring is the one thing we don't do in the modules. So you can see that, like, as I was mentioning, like all of the sort of like tools and materials are sort of like right at hand, sort of in this.
Like standardized
in this station,
lumber pieces.
Standardized lumber, but all the tools for the specific stations are all sort of there, and we have dedicated crews that essentially sort of are repetitively doing kind of one task over and over again, although there's substantial amounts of variety in it, that they're sort of always sort of focusing on one specific scope of work, which really again makes it nice. So you can see here, these are these large openings where we're going to be putting in probably some stacking sliders because the wall's really thick there. You can see we've had to like coordinate where all of these, this is the complexity of going mod to mod. Even here where we're probably connecting out to a mod deck. So there'll actually be another module out there. There will be a deck. This is actually the wall of glass. It's on the perimeter of the house. But you can see when we're kind of doing this connection and these crossovers, we have to end up kind of like really calling out where all of the numbers of connections between modules happen, and therefore like coordinate all of it. And that becomes, again, that represents some of the scope of work of what gets done on site, everything in one module.
And so this is kind of a combination of, you have that purpose-built steel framing with wood framing. So what's the steel framing add if you have all the wood framing in there too?
So the steel framing's doing all of the structural work. So it's actually providing all of the vertical support, but then also it's providing all of the dynamic kind of shear resistance that's required for earthquakes or high wind scenarios, stuff like that. So the steel's actually doing all of the work. The wood ends up doing, essentially creating partition space. And so it's either keeping the outdoors out, keeping the outdoors out, or it's just sort of dividing up space. But essentially it's not needed. Like, so all of the wood portion is not needed. And again, that's like the flexibility of letting people put glass wherever they want to in their house, because essentially we only have, along the 40-foot wall, we only really have one steel column that we need to worry about, and that's where this is. And so we're kind of like framing up and around that, but this allows us to have these really, really open spaces. Tiling actually starts kind of back in station 6 over there, and then it travels down through sort of those stations. The assembly line's kind of like turning and then coming back towards us here. But so now, like, finished tile, which is actually probably taken about 3 stations or 4 stations, which means it's taken probably about 3 or 4 days in order to complete, has traveled with the units as they go from station to station. So
are the bathrooms just popped in there from another supplier, or are you building the bathrooms on site?
No,
like
we're building the bathrooms. Yes.
Since we've seen a lot of unique aspects to the design and the construction method here, what would you say the most innovative aspect is of this shelter solution?
I think it's the off-grid kind of nature of it. I think that, flexibly deployed, really plug and play when you don't even necessarily have to plug. Maybe it's just play. Again, like the off-grid capacity, and then also the fact that like there's no installation of them essentially, except like very minimal hookups. All of that sort of points to this like more, I don't know what the word is, transitional type of housing that actually is really kind of moving from site to site, So.
And as far as timing is concerned, how fast can you produce a unit if an order comes in for a Connect 3?
So right now we're trying to transition the line so that we can be doing, I think it's close to 40 units or something like that, or maybe it's a month. Yeah. It actually might be closer to 80 units a month. I'm sorry, but we're 4 a day. Trying to kind of transition to that. It's a little bit of a chicken or egg thing. We just now think we've gotten our first large order, which allows us to really sort of optimize the line for, that product. In this next month, we're definitely going to be in a scenario in which if someone places an order for one of these shelters, we can have it purpose made probably in, 6 weeks or less.
Oh, wow. And Gordon, thank you so much for the tour today. I really appreciate your time and kind of seeing every little innovative aspect and the ins and outs of this Shelter 3. So thank you so much for the tour.